when it comes to free agency, is it GMs, coaches, or players that you trust and get a lot of your info?
All of them. All
Okay.
three. Yeah, because they're all. Some of the insiders were kind of like the middlemen because they want to know who is.
They call
really
you
telling
for
the
info,
truth. And a lot of because you want to know who's really telling the truth. I want to make sure if there's real interest here or not. And some of it, a lot of these players, they'll get in their heads like, I really want to go to this team, and they'll try and convince their agent that they are a perfect fit for this team. This team really may not have that much interest.
That's right.
And the agent is trying to get them off of that team to another team that really has interest. But the player's looking at them like, you're not doing your job because I want to be at that team.
Okay, so let's talk Richard Sherman.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think I've been told San Francisco's going to – they drafted a corner last year. If Denzel Ward's available, they like Denzel Ward too. They got a good front seven. They got their quarterback. They need some receivers. Okay. So I don't know if Richard Sherman – I don't know if the best fits the Niners. But I know he wanted to play with the Niners.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
So give me the story, the backstory on this.
The backstory, actually, is I know he's come out and he said, well, Seattle didn't want to match. It's interesting. What people don't know is he called John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, and John was actually giving him guidance on how to do his deal because he's his own agent. So it wasn't like they thought they're doing him a solid. I think Richard looked at it like, here's my deal because I want you guys to match. They're looking at it like, we're trying to help you out and guide you since you're being your own agent, and this is where you can get more money. Obviously, it helps the Seahawks if he gets a lot more money.
Of course.
It hurts their cap, right?
So they were doing a solid to him.
Absolutely, and they're trying to say, hey, look, even when you're talking to other teams, even if you're just going to do the 49ers, make sure you present it. You go to these other teams or you tell these other teams this is the type of money you're being offered, you want. And they actually were guiding him and trying to help him. So they were a little shocked when he came out and said, well, no, they did me wrong. I tried it, and they said no. So that's not the way we looked at it at all. But they knew they were going to move on from him. Last year, they really tried to gauge the trade interest there on him also when that whole thing went down of, him and Russell, and does he want to be here? And he was saying he wants out. So it's always been – this didn't come as a shock to him or them that he was moving on.
Okay, the Kirk Cousins situation. Yeah. I always joke, there's some things in life you overpay for. Central air in Arizona, a winter coat in the Northeast, and quarterbacks.
I'm so stealing that from you, by the way.
But quarterbacks, you just overpay for.
Yeah.
With Kirk Cousins, I know they didn't want to pay him that, but it's $4 to $5 million from what? I mean, how is it going to dismantle the Vikings next 2 years?
So here's I talked to the Vikings about it last night, and they're like, we're just tired of playing quarterback, roulette. Like, we just wanted somebody in there. We do think we have a guy we could build it. And look, we just saw this past year, you don't need your quarterback to be Tom Brady to go far because we just had Foles and Keenum.
Right.
You just need a guy that you really know is going to be a grown-up and not screwed up for everybody else.
Going to be a grown-up. Yeah.
So Kirk, it's pretty interesting, though, because he's beat up. He really is. When he first got there, I remember going out with him and a bunch of the offensive linemen, and the old linemen were like, we love this guy. RG3, no relationship with. No relationship. This kid, they're like, oh, my God, we love him. He's one of us. He's the type of guy we're all going to go out with. And they loved him. But over the last couple of years, they beat up on him so much that it certainly fractured, I think, whether it's his confidence or just his whole aura. And then you see guys now in Washington just start ripping him.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
I think it's just affected him the last couple of years. Look, if your boss is constantly saying, you're not worth it, you're not worth it, you're not worth it.
That's right.
And we're going to screw your name up when we talk about you publicly. Hey, Kirk Cousins, I mean, come on. So when the Vikings brought him in, they realized, too, we gotta love him up an awful lot. Yeah. Like, Zim's going to have to learn how to be like a happy, nice guy to really love him up here. But they think that, okay, we finally have a guy. We know next 3 years we don't have to worry about the position. We don't have to worry. Even at the end here with Keenum, they were still saying, well, if he falters here, we're going to put in Bridgewater. If he falters here, we're going to put in Bradford.
That's done.
That's all done. Okay,
now, I said everybody in the NFC, I mean, I think you can still win with Eli, with Nate Solder, and if you got Saquon Barkley and OBJ comes back, Giants will be fine offensively. They'll score points, but
they need more than that on the O-line.
Huh?
They need more than that on the offensive line. They had a bad O-line last year. Ooh.
I would argue Arizona, having lived in Vegas, is in danger of becoming an old mobster. They're going to disappear in the desert. Okay, they're in a division with Goff twice a year, Garoppolo twice a year, Shanahan twice a year, McVay twice a year, Russell Wilson twice a year, Pete Carroll twice a year. They don't have a quarterback.
Right.
Okay, Jay, in the Colts, Chris Ballard, you know him. Okay, they need multiple players. They need multiple guys. Bradley Chubb's a good player. If I'm Arizona and I called them and said, I got to get Josh Rosen, I got to get Baker, I'm not going to get Darnold, Couldn't Arizona call today and say, you can have a first, a second, a third, next year's first? If you're Arizona, don't you have to get a quarterback?
I would think them and Denver would have called something like that, but I don't.
Am I nuts here?
That's not. Yeah, I don't think the contract. You're talking about trading for Andrew Luck. I just think, if you're going to do it.
Not trading Andrew Luck. No, trading for the pick. If I'm Arizona, I want to get to the third pick. I'll give up anything to get to the third pick. I think they'll still
be able to get a quarterback where they are. Or they can move up a little bit. I think they'll be able to get that quarterback. They loved enough of these quarterbacks in this draft.
They did.
Yeah, they did. They really did, which is why they didn't really jump into the Garoppolo trade talks. It's interesting even that everybody's looking at it now saying, oh, my gosh, Jimmy, look at what he was. You didn't fully know it. Because, look, we all thought Brissett was going to be phenomenal, and then he turned out to be, a solid fill-in quarterback, on that level. But you don't want to go out and give a 2 and the highest contract in the history of the NFL if you're not absolutely positive about it and if you love some of these quarterbacks coming out. So
and you're telling me they do.
They do. They love some of these quarterbacks coming out. And again, they go out and they get a guy like Sam Bradford, who, Sam's knee is obviously it's an issue, but they're like, we want one of these young guys. And for a guy like Sam's a coach to help tutor these young guys. But they've liked these young guys since the start of last season.
Okay, so is there anything I think the Eagles adding Bennett, you can't double team him in Philly. I still think he's a disruptive player. I like Michael Bennett, the player. I think he's a disruptive player. Philadelphia is very interesting. They're not resting. Howie Roseman's moving. That to me has been exciting. I like to see, but like New England's like, okay, we're always going to add pieces. Right. Anything in free agency that has surprised you a little?
Well, actually, you just brought it up. And it stems from the Eagles because last couple of years, free agency's been a bad game of fantasy football. Guys whose names are big, who are getting overpaid, and you just don't win that way. You don't build. And a lot of teams realize that. They're like, we're not doing this. We're not going and throwing a boatload of money at Dominican Sues and all those guys. It's not a huge type of market because it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
You got to build through the draft.
Yes.
You got to smartly go get an Andrew Whitworth that is going to help the quarterback.
That's a great one. That was a great move.
That's the type of guys you need. But then all of a sudden, the Philadelphia Eagles happened last year. And the Eagles went out, and they got guys like Alshon Jeffrey and the Chris Longs, and then they traded for J.J. They almost played this game that has become taboo in free agency over the last couple of years, except for a few teams, the Washington Redskins of the world. Right? That's all that really did it. And all of a sudden, Philly had success with it. And that's why I think you see all these teams this year, they have changed their ways. They're like, because it's a what have you done for me lately?
That's a really good point. So the Rams had success with it.
Right.
And the Eagles had success with it.
So it must work.
Well, you've said this before. It's a copycat league.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.